Okay, thank you very much, Michael. And of course, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time of the day that you are, wherever you're viewing this video from. Well, and thank you for the opportunity given us to talk about this book today, The Structure of Nigeria's Economy, a Modern Approach. This book is inspired by a lot of factors. The first credit would go to God, who is the author and finisher of knowledge. Of course, in addition to that, our lead author, late Dr. Ikechukwu Kelekume, his years of teaching, personal experiences, consultations, in addition to our personal teachings and consultation experiences, that is myself and Dr. Elvis Ozegbe as well, we have seen all over the country that one of the most issues discussed by people, both the knowledgeable and those who are not knowledgeable, is the Nigeria's economy. In fact, if you listen to television, you go to newspaper stands, you go to social media, one of the most recurring words is the economy. And what about the economy? The Nigerian economy is sluggish, the Nigerian economy is tepid, the Nigerian economy is tough, the economy is bad, so it is the economy. We wanted people to understand what an economy is. We wanted people to understand the Nigeria's economy. And that was what inspired us to dissect the Nigerian economy structurally using modern mathematical and statistical illustrations to show people what's happening in each of the sectors of the Nigerian economy. For instance, we delved into several sectors like the real sectors and financial sector. Within the real sector, we looked at the agricultural sector, we looked at the industrial sector, we looked at the potentials for growth in agriculture as well as industries. We saw the reasons why the industrial sector has been tepid in terms of growth and contributions to GDP. We also saw that the service sector now leads growth. So agriculture is not doing well. The industries are not doing well. But unfortunately, services, which is supposed to market the products from both agricultural and industrial sector, is doing very well. There is, a misfit somewhere. Growth naturally flows from agriculture through industries to service. What we're experiencing is what we call indirect deindustrialization. It is a case where the service sector drives growth. The economy appears to be doing well, but in reality, the real sectors are sluggish. The real sectors are not contributing. The real sectors are being underdeveloped. It means that the service sector is marketing the products from other countries, which means creating employment in other countries because we are selling their products here. And that is why unemployment continues to grow. So there is this desire, this motivation to let people become more aware of what is truly happening within the Nigerian economic space. This is what has motivated this book. Okay, thank you very much. Now, to say the very least, we have a very few number of books on the structure of Nigeria's economy. The most popular of those books, authored by some of my teachers, even at the University of Benin, Professor Yoha and the rest, The Structure of Nigerian Economy, published by University of Benin Press, was published in 1997. Between 1997 and date, a lot have changed. So there is this need for an update on current economic performances and issues. The issues that Nigeria faced in 1997 or pre-1997 are not exactly the same issue we face today. So students, readers, policymakers would have to understand the current trends in Nigeria's economic performance. Again, our book differs from earlier books because it is the most recent. using modern approaches and simplicity to explain technical economic, concepts. For instance, our book uses simple graphical illustration, data presentation using APA table. The book is data driven. It is recent. It is current. Another point of difference is the fact that this book is tailored to the CC Maths. The CC Maths is the current core curriculum for approved by the NUC for universities today. So that is the benchmark for academic, performance. Today, as we adopt the new CC Maths guidelines for teaching and learning in universities, one of the core economic courses is the structure of Nigeria's economy, and the content of this book fits exactly into the NUC approved course content for the structure of Nigeria's economy. So the National Universities Commission understands how much this is relevant, not just to Nigerians as a whole, but to young Nigerians, undergraduates. So imagine that every economy student in year 2 offers this course across universities in Nigeria. And within the same book, you can find majority of the content of that course, which tells you that there is no existing textbook within this structure that presents students with such wide readership, currency, and recent as well as simplified approach. So, with these points, it is obvious that a book differs from existing books and offers new frontiers of knowledge and horizon in terms of the structure of Nigeria's economy. And that is why we call it a modern approach and not the fundamental or traditional approach of what we have been saying. I think the question is around, are there current challenges within the Nigerian economy that are highlighted, that are discussed in this book? The answer to that question is yes, there are so many of those current challenges. The Nigerian economy, unfortunately, is bedeviled by several challenges, no doubt. But again, there is a perception of where you view this challenge from, either as an economist or a non-economist. As economists, the authors view the first challenge, the challenge of policy inconsistency. Policy inconsistency. In the chapter 8 of this book, we looked at previous and past developmental policies and strategies, developmental plans in Nigeria. So the pre-colonial plans, the pre-independent economic development plans, and the post-independent economic development plans. We saw that within each of these plans, beautiful policy documents that government was supposed to implement, implementation durations were often terminated. For instance, if a development plan is slated for 5 years, within 3 years, maybe due to a change in government or economic and political interest, the policy will be terminated. Other policies will be promoted. Other policies will be formulated. When there is a change in government as well, the running policy would come to an abrupt end, leading to other. So, the main key challenge reviewed in chapter 8 of this book is the issue of lack of economic development and growth, which is motivated, which is being driven by policy inconsistency. Beyond the developmental plans, we delved into the structural adjustment programs. The structural adjustment program, which we call SAP, was implemented in Nigeria in 1986. As Nigeria implemented, other countries who were aspirational pairs, as well as performance structural pairs like Indonesia and Ghana, also implemented this program. Indonesia recorded a lot of success Theirs was success story. Ghana, yes, they were more successful in implementation and economic outcome of SAP. Nigeria, we were not successful. Although there are certain areas where we recorded successes, but not as pronounced as what Indonesia recorded. We give this very big instance. Before implementation of SAP, growth in Nigeria, economic stability was more in Nigeria than Indonesia. Unemployment rate was lesser. But unfortunately, SAP implementation was fully committed to by a team of economic experts in Indonesia. In the case of Nigeria, implementation of SAP came to abrupt end and there were no immediate policy continuation. In the case of Indonesia, SAP laid the foundation for future economic development plans. Post-SAP, till date, Indonesia had running and rolling economic plans. In the case of Nigeria, it is not so. The same is found in our society today, in the economic structure today, where there is policy inconsistency between administrations. That is one of the major challenges. The second challenge that we highlighted in this book is the challenge of fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit means government spending more than the revenue that she has, leading to huge debt as well as tight fiscal challenge for the government. For instance, as we speak today, total public debt has been on the rise, which means the government then owed a lot of people, companies, and international organizations. And these engagements stifled government of resources for developmental purposes. When government has owned so much, what do you expect? Inability to meet project commitments, inability to fund capital projects, inability to meet up with several other important financial engagements. The issue of public debt is enlightened, discussed in chapter 4 of this book. Beyond that, we looked at the challenge of indirect deindustrialization. Recently, you heard that a lot of companies are on their way out of Nigeria. Yes, what is happening to the industrial sector? The likes of GSK. When I was working at Tagbara, for instance, GSK was one of the companies where every young guy would want to work because it is juicy to work. If GSK leaves, we have other international companies that have left. Then what is this telling you? Our industrial sector is on the decline. So this book also highlighted the issue of indirect industrialization in chapters 10 and 11, where we discussed the Nigerian industrial sector. But we did not just focus on the challenge. The challenges are there. The challenges are real, but there has to be way forward. We also profile solutions, economic policy, framework within the book that would help readers understand, policymakers know the direction to go in terms of arresting the problem of deindustrialization, in terms of solving the problems of fiscal deficits, and in terms of addressing the problem of policy inconsistencies. We examine the impact of these challenges on various sectors of the economy and subsectors of the economy. We see the impact on unemployment, the impact on perpetuation of poverty, the impact on the issue of macroeconomic instability. So it is our belief that highlighting these challenges makes sense, but again, profiling solution is the main target. Challenges are there, but there has to be a way out. So that is why for every challenge highlighted, we follow immediately with what we feel could be the way out of the problem. Okay, very good. I believe that there are three set of people that you have mentioned now. First, students. Secondly, policymakers. And thirdly, other readers. I would classify other readers into two: those with economic knowledge and those who are not economists. So let's start with the students. The primary target of this book are students and policymakers. For students, we could divide into two: students and professional students. So for students who are in the field of social sciences, humanities, management, or leadership, of course, this book is going to expose them first through the fundamentals of every economy. In the opening chapter, we classified, in chapter 1 to be specific, we classified economies into different forms according to some 21 criteria. We could have developing, which we call frontier. We could have developed, and we have emerging economies. We also have the least developed economies. There are certain conditions which we use to classify. For instance, some of those criteria I mentioned would be for classification into these 4 parts are the level of GDP. What is the level of GDP, gross domestic product of the economy? Is it low? Is it high? Is it moderate? What is the level of inflation? Is it low? Is it high? Is it moderate? What is the population growth rate? Is it low? Is it high? Is it moderate? So every reader, every student in the world who has interest in economics, to understand how the economy works, would first understand the categorization of an economy into different dimensions, either developed, developing, emerging, or undeveloped or underdeveloped economies. This is important generically to all students. Now, for students of Nigerian origin who either are studying abroad or studying in Nigeria, what happens in Nigeria is important to them. This book is particularly interested in enlightening them on how the Nigeria economy has been working, how the Nigeria economy has evolved, the different structures within the economy. This will not only give them, information about the economic structures, but even in their career paths. For instance, if I ask you, if you have a job today in the agricultural sector, or in the telecommunications sector, or in the financial subsector of the economy, which of these jobs will you take after graduating? How will this book help you answer that question? By how much is each of these sectors contributing to economic growth? Labor is paid the value of its marginal productivity. So the more a sector contributes to growth, the higher the tendency of better wage and improved working condition within that sector. So understanding the economy is perfect, but bringing it to bear in terms of career decisions and opportunity takings is also important to the student. So this book will guide the student in terms of what sectors they would want to plan their career along. Beyond the sectoral career plans, it will also help the student. Students we see today will become decision makers and investors tomorrow. It will also guide them in terms of what sector to make their investment. There are some sectors that are growing fast but with low impact, as analyzed in this book. There are some sectors, growth is low, impact is low. That is not the best sector to invest. There are other sectors with high growth and high impact. This is the best sector where we can invest. So students reading this book, having the understanding of the structural operation of the economy, would also help them in the future in terms of investment decision. It could even help them guide their parents, guardians and sponsors better, and their brothers in terms of what sectors to invest and what sectors not to invest. That is from the perspective of students. Now, from the perspective of policymakers, I tell you today, there's what we call economic governance. It is one of the things that we lack in Nigeria. It is obvious that you go to a certain ministry. If you go to the Ministry of Economic Planning today, you may see, even at the state level or at the national level, you may see that a few percentage of the people maybe economists. Which means that we have engineers, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have other professionals who are experts in their rights making economic decisions, macroeconomic decisions. Should it really be so? Okay, now we have found ourselves in this situation. What do they do? A better knowledge of the economic structure, a better knowledge of where we are coming from, a better knowledge of where we are, and a prognosis into what the future economic operations would be. This book will also help policymakers in direction, enlightenment, looking at earlier policies that have been implemented. How are they different from what you are doing now? If the programs of SAP needs and economic recovery and growth plans are the same as what we are implementing this time, if we do the same thing over and over, we get the same result. Is that not? It shows that policymakers will have to learn the new ways of policy formulations by understanding the past trends in various economic structures. Now to the professional students, those in MBA classes, those in other professional degree programs in the humanities, this book is very important. There is no economy that works without the contribution from different sectors. Even to journalists. Journalism, engineering, medical practices all exist within an economy, right? Whatever happens to the macroeconomy would affect the pockets of sectors within the economy. The lawyer would need to understand how Nigeria's economic structure has performed in the past, both from the legal and economic point of view, the business point of view, and taking this forward, how would this affect his job roles? How would this affect his decisions? How would this affect his practices? This book gives a lot of coverage. And to ensure that different professionals and policymakers with different backgrounds understand the trends in Nigeria's economic structure, a simple universal language is used. Technical languages and huge economic equations and jargons and econometric approaches have been avoided. This is to ensure that every reader at every level have that equal opportunity to engage with this book. Engagement in terms of reading the languages and understanding the basic economic terms and terminologies. This is what we carefully and painstakingly, crave out of this book. So, I believe that this book will be a companion to students, to policymakers, as well as other individuals who are interested in the workings of the Nigerian economy. Okay, thank you for this very interesting question. In my last reaction to your question before this, I said that we decided to remove economic jargons and so much technicalities from this book so that everybody would enjoy it, right? But there will be follow-ups. There will be follow-ups. For instance, in the pipeline, we have a test. The title is not clear yet, but is around the prediction or forecasting methods using macroeconomic modelings. How this is going to help managers who have businesses to manage and control and regulate within the volatile macroeconomic framework of Nigeria. You know that prediction is very important in business decision making. If we don't try to peep into the future, we wouldn't know what steps to take today. Data-driven forecasting methods for managers. That will be coming by God's grace in the next few years, by God's grace. So then again, in addition to that, the world today is gone scientific, where big data is required for business decisions. There's also something in the pipeline on statistical methods and experiential learning approach for students and managers. This will help managers and students understand various statistical techniques and how they are importantly adopted in data-driven decision-making processes for firms, for government, as well as for individuals. In those two projects, by God's grace, you will meet with the rigorous macroeconomic, statistical, and econometric jargons. Yes, it will be interesting to the readers. It will also be interesting to the business community, because even if the equations and other mathematical expressions are not well understood by them, but the policy implications from those arrangements would help them in their business decisions. Here, in this current book, we did not carry out any forecast. All we did was an evaluation of the past, a review of current situation, and of course, some recommendations based on past experiences. But there is a gap, which is the fact that there is a need to peep into the future. And that is what has informed future projects. So by the special grace of God, we are looking forward to this, putting arrangements and content and outline in place. And we hope that if we have the opportunity to publish, we pay you praise again. Of course, we will do that. Of course, we will do that by the grace of God. Of course, there are. I think first, I want to say to our lead author, Dr. Ikechukwu Kume, wherever he is today, I'm sure he's in heaven. May his soul continue to rest in peace. He is a mentor. I wouldn't say was, because most times when I do things, I hear his voice. I worked with him for several years. I stayed and I lived with him, even in his house. Yes, so I understand him very well. We had worked together for so long a time. And very painful that he left just before this book came. But may his soul rest in peace. His legacy will be illuminated continuously. When you read some chapters of the book, you will hear his voice. So he'll continue to live on in this book. I also want to thank my other co-author, Dr. Elvis Ezebe, who also did very well in terms of contributions to this project. I say thank you, Doc, for everything. You're a good partner, you're a partner in progress. And to the reading community, to our students, ex-sim students, students all over Nigeria, students all over the world, those who are interested in the operations of Nigeria's economic systems, grab this book, grab a copy. It's going to be a companion. This text does not only capture the outlines within the structure of Nigeria's economy. For those offering some courses in financial management, financial institutions, there are some chapters that are dedicated to the Nigerian financial system. Yes, for those who are studying agricultural economics, 2 chapters or more are dedicated to this sector. For those who are in the sciences and want to see the economy of industry, of course, 2 chapters of this book are dedicated to the industrial sector. For those who are studying international relations and global practices, global trade, international trade, of course, we have chapters on international trade. We have another chapter on globalization and economic integration. It is a textbook that every student, every staff, every working class Nigerian, every household should have. And as I said earlier, the language is very simple. I want to use this opportunity to also say, in case you take note of any additions that are necessary and you want to get back to us for inclusion, we will welcome this. It is a continuum, and we hope as we make progress, we'll update it after some years so that current trends can also be added to this. Thank you so very much.